too because I felt bad for him.
Right.
I felt bad that he felt bad. I was like, it was not just him. It was overwhelmed. It was as the adult, I shouldn't have let that get to me. But I
Right.
explained, I'm like, we are all people, and I do care about you
Well-being.
and
Right.
you. The I don't know. I even contacted a parent afterwards because he was the too cool for school kid.
Hmm.
He came and he hugged me and he's like, I'm so sorry for your dad. And I emailed his mom that night and I was like, I just needed you to know because he probably didn't come home and tell you. I was like, I had a rough day. And he made sure that I was okay and, you're raising a good kid because, like, I mean, it meant a lot. It was a
Wow.
good day.
Welcome to episode 6 of your favorite teacher's favorite teacher podcast.
All right. So we'll begin with telling the audience your name, where you work, how long you've been in education, and what do you do?
Okay. My name is Kelly Martinez. I am an eighth grade ELA teacher at Adams Junior High, and I'm currently my 11th year teaching.
11 years.
Yes.
That's awesome. Okay. So we are going to begin the podcast off like we always do. We're going to begin the podcast with what I like to call the journey. So, here, what I'd like you to do is share with the audience your journey from day one as a teacher to where you are right now. Let the audience know a little bit about your story as an educator.
So I started at Cardiff Junior High, where I student taught. Taught sixth grade there. At that time, you were either reading or writing, and I was a writing teacher. I got to work with my mentor, who was amazing, loved her. And I was there, and I also coached basketball. I coached volleyball, which I shouldn't have, and track. I was there for 3 years. Um, I learned a lot. I think that about camaraderie, like they were very. I think it's because a smaller campus. They were better about maybe not better relationships. We all ate lunch every subject at that
Awesome.
time. We would eat lunch together. We, you know, I mean, we really bonded on just like our journey at that time, like just education in general. I think that it was a very good place for me to start because I experienced a lot of different things with the different kinds of students that I had. And with the coaching part, I was able to learn something new, but also get to see kids in a different way rather than just in the classroom. So I really enjoyed that. I That's when ICs we had ICs, but the IC's role I think became more important to
Okay.
planning. And I was sixth grade, like I said, but my there was an eighth grade teacher who became the IC. Her name is Colleen Black, and I love her. She was amazing, and I learned a lot from her. And I think that I mean, I really enjoyed it there. I will say that things did start turning, and it becomes hard when a lot of people are unhappy. I'm an emotional person, and so like when sometimes I would find myself that they were unhappy, and I was okay that day, but then I'd go home and I'm like, wait, yeah, I feel that way too, and it was very hard. Especially when I lost my mentor, she went to a new school, people start leaving, admin changed, so you just the dynamics change, everything changes, and I was pregnant at the time. I did have a mini stroke
Oh, no.
when I was pregnant. And when you're in a coaching contract, you can't just get out.
Right.
Especially there, people didn't really want to coach. A lot of coaches were trying to get out that had been there, so they had like seniority, and so they did give me Katy ISD gave me a like a medical leave of absence from that part of coaching. So I expressed that I didn't want to after the baby, and they couldn't agree to it at that time. And so that's when I started looking at other campuses, just because I knew with a new daughter, like a new baby, I couldn't take on the coaching as well.
Right.
um, I had a really hard time finding interviews. At that time I'd only wanted to do older kids. My goal has always been high school since I was little. I wanted to teach high school, specifically junior year English. And I know like how high schools work. You kind of work your way up to those higher upperclassmen. And I applied to every junior high in KDIC and I never heard back. So I did start, I was like, sixth grade and fifth grade aren't that far apart, right? So 2 campuses were opening up. I applied at both of them, and luckily got hired on at Jinx Elementary. So I was able to open that school there. And so I taught 5th grade ELA and social studies. I was there for 5 years. I I was very happy there. I I don't even know, the culture there was amazing. You felt like a lot of people. I mean, you felt like everyone had your back. It was like a place that formed real friendships, because y'all all were there for the same reason. We're there for the kids. We're working. Helping each other out. It was just very pleasant. I loved it there. I became team leader, which helped me and it pushed me. So I grew from that because I was never one to rock boats or take on a leadership role. And so I did appreciate him seeing me in that light and that I was able to do that. And I tried my best to, like, we were a team of 11, which is it's a lot for elementary. And I really wanted us to be a team and family. And I would do what we could to try and do that. That's where I learned too, that I like the new teachers, the baby teachers, because they're just so fresh and excited about the profession. And it sometimes can get hard when all you see is not even negative, because they weren't negative, but like just I think when you're in it longer, I don't know, you're just kind of jaded by certain things. Whereas these fresh ones are like, let's, try all these new things, and you just learn so much from them. And I just think I had one there that I really wanted to help, and it didn't go the way I wanted, which then helped me also reflect on that, like how I approached those things. I did want to move up to high school, and I knew I did. So I did get high school certified while I was at Jinx, and I did apply for high schools, and I kind of was with the thought of, like, if they contact me, it was meant to be, right?
Right.
And I would apply, and they didn't. Adams opened up. I applied the first year it opened, because in my mind, I felt like maybe these high schools weren't contacting me because I was 5th grade. Like, maybe I need to get a little bit higher to be like more close in grades.
Makes sense.
And yeah, so I tried. I tried Adams. I went to my interview. Thought I left it. I was so excited. I was like, I rocked that. I did not get it. And it piggybacked off me getting teacher of the year. So I was like, hey, I have this on my resume. Man, like, I am going to get this. This is so exciting. They were great. I loved it. It was Patrick Page at the time.
Yeah,
was the one there, and I had worked with him, and I just thought it, really fit. And sometimes it's not always right. I did not fit at that moment. So I stayed at Jinx happily, right, for another year. COVID hit. When COVID hit, an opening did come up, and I had a friend that was at Adams at the time that used to work with me at Jinx, and she's like, Kelly, try again. Like, I think you'll love it. Come on, try again. And it's hard sometimes, you were told no once, like, what's made a year's difference, but I applied and I got the position.
Wow.
For reading intervention at the time. And then I started the year with KVA. I was a mix. I had one class of reading intervention because at that time parents did not want to agree that they had no star scores to base it off of. So while I thought we were going to get all these classes of it, I was so excited. I'm going to small groups, book clubs. We are going to be rocking and rolling. Like, it was my jam, and it was not what it was expected, which just shows. That's just education's, classes don't always go the way you think they're going to. And they also adopted a computer program, rather than authentic teaching or,
right.
But even then, like, I couldn't do much. They had adopted the program, and there wasn't a lot of guidance because the person who's in charge of it, they had just bought it, and it was not my favorite thing. And I looked forward to the block of 7th grade. I taught 7th grade too at that time, with you. I had 2 blocks of 7th grade, and I really enjoyed it. And then that year I told my principal that I didn't think that that was for me. I think the IC at the time and my DC knew that I was not okay with just teaching the computer program.
Right.
I wanted to interact. I wanted to do more. And so then I moved full time to 7th grade. And now that was 2 years of full 7th grade only. And now I'm my 4th year there teaching 8th grade.
You're rocking it
Yes.
too.
Thanks.
Doing the thing. Doing your thing. Yes. And I just want to make sure that I point out some stuff that you said and correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like the ability to have a group where you are a tight knit group that meant a lot to you
Oh, yes.
as a teacher. Am I correct?
Yes, I kind of felt emotional even talking about it because it was some of my best years.
Right.
Yeah.
That's and I just want to make sure that people understand this career that we are in. Your team can make or break you as a teacher. It's not just the students, but it's also those people to the left and to the right of you that can make a person's career. So I just wanted to point that out before moving forward into the next part of our podcast, which I guess it kind of blends into your worst day and your best day. So the section I like to call our yin and yang. So in this part, I'd like you to talk to the audience about your best day as a teacher and your worst day as a teacher. So, you know what? To keep it positive, we'll start off with the
Yes.
bad part and we'll
Oh.
finish up positive. How's
okay.
that? How's that?
Yes.
Okay.
I think and I think people that would want to watch your podcast would be teachers. So
Right.
some teachers, I would hope that they understand and can relate to some. We all have bad days, right?
Right. Right.
And sometimes we have them way more often than we should. But when you did ask this, there were a few things that came up in my mind, and it was more just about interactions, maybe more so with how things were handled, or maybe not necessarily like a bad day for me, like a bad lesson, right? Because
Right.
I think we learn from those. Those aren't necessarily, it might feel bad at that moment, but when you realize later, like, hey, you just come back and it's better the next day. One situation that really stuck out to me was an incident with a student. I pride myself on being a rule follower.
Right.
And at our school, we are implementing small groups. That is what was expected of us. And I took value in that. And I thought, I put a lot of work into my small groups too. And I had really good classroom management. I mean, the kids knew what they were supposed to be doing. If they were not with me, they knew what they were supposed to be doing. I made it very clear, like, what they do in independent time. They were old enough to understand what they were supposed to be doing. So I was working in a small group with students. Nothing really felt off that day, or like I didn't notice anything. Nothing was told to me at that time. And then I received an email at home, which I know some teachers don't have email on their phone for these reasons. And I got an email that evening that, a student attempted to hurt themselves in my classroom. And basically I was accused of, at that moment, of not being present. I mean, present, yes, like they knew I was in the room, but present as to paying attention to their kids.
Right.
Because her kid was this kid was in independent time. So they were supposed to be reading and jotting. I even remember what they were doing. It was like a session of Lucy Calkins that they were supposed to be jotting down in their notebooks after what I had just taught them. And when I first saw the email, I just couldn't wrap my mind around it first, that this took place. I think any good teacher, I felt guilty. I just couldn't imagine that happening in my classroom, and it escalated quickly. Parents wanted her daughter pulled out of my class, which again, guilt. But personally, we had a good relationship, and it was really hard because I felt very emotional to that. Like I wanted to be there for that student. I liked, we had a good banter, like we just had a good relationship, and I just didn't want to lose them. And my principal stood by us, me, and because there were some other things that they were upset about too. But so when I say us, it was me and my partner.
Okay.
And parents demanded a parent teacher conference. I would not. You should never go home. I mean, go to those conferences alone. So my principal did come, and it got very accusatory, out of control, accusing me of not caring about their kids, not being a good teacher because I didn't catch this. Which no, and I, the ones listening, I don't. No one can catch everything.
Right.
You know, as hard as we try, like we try and we do try, can't catch everything. And it was a bad moment, right? It was bad. I will say, I will never forget though him standing up for me, because when she accused me of not caring, he very much and passionately let her know that I do care. You know, I do. You will not accuse them of not caring. I did care, and it was very hard. She stayed in my class because my admin knew that I mean, it was not me. I was doing what I was supposed to do. However, I mean, that was literally 7 years ago, and
Oh, wow.
I can't. It's one thing that I won't be able to let go, just because I was like doing as a teacher what you're supposed to do, right? You're in the classroom, you're doing what you're supposed to do, and they weren't open to listening or hearing that it maybe was more than just me. Maybe it was something going on with the kids, you know.
Well, and what I'd like you to do as well, because I do hope that there are parents out there that maybe aren't teachers that listen to the podcast.
Yes.
So I'd like you to explain to them what you mean when you say small group, pull small group, so that they have a better understanding of what a small group is.
Oh, yes. So in this regard, I taught a lesson.
Right.
Okay. Pretty sure we were doing something like over text structure. I'm telling you, that's how vivid this is for me. And so after we teach it, we would let them practice on their own. And in the small groups, you pull kids who they're more on the same level of maybe we assess text structure, and I knew that these kids really needed help on this one, and these kids didn't need help on text structure at all, so I'm going to give them a different assignment. But the small groups were for more individual. You're able to hit more kids at once. You're able to work with them, though, on what they need, rather than just teaching the whole class something that half the kids know, some of the kids have never even heard of.
Exactly.
It was I stand behind small groups. I do think that they are very beneficial.
They are.
When used correctly. And I don't want this to taint that view.
Right.
Because, like I said, those kids, usually, if your classroom management is done correctly, if you have your expectations set up, they know what they're supposed to be doing. And those kids, too, are going to come to small group, too. It was not just, it's not just these kids. And I think that, because actually the parents that was actually brought up in there, that they weren't happy with small groups, that they had seen it in Watchdog Dads. And we even brought up how beneficial it was at that moment, because those students were a little bit higher. So now I could take those higher students and do something and extend their learning, rather than you just sit here and listen to me talk about something that you've known for 2 years. I think,
Well, I think it's important for the parents to understand if those parents were on the other end, and their student was a student that needed that small group learning, like that's important. This is your opportunity to give that extra tutorial to the kids who don't understand the concept that you're teaching, while those who do understand the concept, you give them something that allows them to take it to the next level.
Yes.
And those who haven't taught our subject and haven't been in our shoes don't understand the benefit of doing that. And when you have a classroom of 30 kids and you're pulling 5 of them to make sure that they get that extra learning that they need, I mean, that's huge. And people have got to understand the benefit of you following that process.
Yes.
So I just, before you went on into the
Yeah.
the good day, I just want to make sure that our audience understands like what you were facing in doing this, and what you did was something that you should be doing as a teacher to make sure. And I give kudos to Katy ISD when they talk about all students learning.
Yes.
The Because all students aren't on the same level, we have to find ways to make sure that all of them are learning at the rate that we teach them.
Yeah.
So thanks for sharing that. Why don't you tell them about your good day, a great day that you had in education?
Well, and I think that it is going to sound very cliche, and I mean, in generic, in the regards of, I mean, it's hard. I think a lot of my days are really good days.
Right.
And I express that you watch them finally understand something, you know, you hear them say like, Miss Martinez, you're the first teacher that has understood how my brain works. I mean, brain works, not even like you understand me. It's like how your brain works, you know. You get the students that will come back to you after they've gotten older, and they come back and they're just like, man, and I don't think it's a diss at their teachers that they have now, but it was just like, man, I haven't had a teacher like you since. You know, I don't know. I honestly, my good days really are just any of those days. I mean, most of my days feel good. Well, even if the kids can drive me crazy. I mean, parents, I'm a parent, 5 kids, you know, kids are going to drive teachers crazy. But when I see that they come back at the end of the day to tell me goodbye, you know, when they, I had a really bad day this year before Thanksgiving break. It was the anniversary of my father's death. And I had a rough class. They just talking. It's Thanksgiving break, right? They're ready to go home. The just behavior piece might have been more in that class than usual, and I started crying. I was just like, guys, like, I'm here for you, and this is, you know, y'all, sounds like a bad day. I promise it's not. I was just, you know, I'm here. I could have stayed home, you know, hid in my bed, thought about my dad, you know, but instead I wanted to be here for you to teach something that they were going to need before we came back from break. And that was the end of the day. I had one more period. By the end of the day, my room was flooded with students, current and past, that had heard, because, you know, Snap had already gotten, so-and-so made Miss Martinez upset today, or whatever, and they all came, and like the 2 cool for school kids that I had last year that I don't have this year because I did move up this year.
Right.
So I have some, and just the compassion that they shown, the hug, like, I literally, guys, like, you have to go home, it's Thanksgiving break. But just, you know, it was overwhelming to me, despite like how sad I was just, you know, 45 minutes before, and seeing these kids who really just cared, not there for the gossip, you know, they just wanted to hug me, tell me it was okay, you know, apologize on the behalf of, just in general, like, I'm sorry for your dad, you know. And I mean, it just really meant a lot. One, to see what good people they are too, like, and I hope that I'm having an impact on that they, you know, are these mature adults, but I mean, growing adults, you know, like, and that they could see us, not just me, but us as real people. Because while I felt silly getting upset in front of them, I think for some of them, it struck something with them that we are people, you know. And my dad, one of the kids was like, I even told him, like, when I told him the story, I was like, my dad was only 51 when this happened. And one of the kids was like, my dad's 51. And I think, you know, just seeing that I even still need my parents, you know, like, I think all of it just had an overwhelming feeling for them too. And the one kid that they said upset me, I was very clear too, because I felt bad for him.
Right.
I felt bad that he felt bad. I was like, it was not just him. It was overwhelming. It was as the adult, I shouldn't have let that get to me, but I
Right.
explained, I'm like, we are all people, and I do care about
Well,
you and
right.
you, the I don't know. I even contacted a parent afterwards because he was the too cool for school kid.
Hmm.
He came and he hugged me and he's like, I'm so sorry for your dad. And I emailed his mom that night and I was like, I just needed you to know because he probably didn't come home and tell you. I was like, I had a rough day. And he made sure that I was okay and, you're raising a good kid because, like, it meant a lot. It was a
Wow.
good day.
And to actually get to experience that, it's a blessing.
Yes.
It is a blessing to see when that switch changes in a kid to for you to be able to say, you know what, that young man or woman is going to turn out to be a
Yeah.
phenomenal human being, and for you to have so many of them care about you when in a time that, like, honestly, I give you your kudos. Uh, Being at work during that time, I couldn't. I couldn't personally imagine it. I've lost my father, and I know during that time was extremely difficult for me. So, um, once again, this podcast, I want everybody in the audience to understand we are more than just individuals who are teaching kids their ABCs and one, two, threes. We are teaching them to be great people, great human beings. And there are sacrifices that we make as educators because we care so much.
100%. Yeah.
And that's that. Hey, that's your flowers right there.
Yeah.
You care that much. I want to acknowledge the heart that you have today to say, I don't know too many people that have gone through what you go through with that loss and still willing to come into work and work with kids and be there with them. Um, and I guess that lends itself to our next part, your favorite teacher, which is the namesake of the podcast. So, with that, I'm pretty sure, based on that story that you just gave, you're going to be somebody's favorite teacher that they're telling their story about in the future. So, could you talk to our audience about a teacher that may have impacted you when you were coming up?
Yes. Can I give like what
Sure.
a side runner up first?
Sure.
So Jennifer Harris, and I've even Katy Magazine has even posted things on like Twitter and things that are like name your favorite teacher, and I put her on there. She was my junior English teacher at Katy High School. And honestly, if you ask me why, there's certain like I can't even remember except certain things like there was something about her,
Right.
her presence in the classroom. Now looking like what is our normal teaching day, or how we set up the classroom was more innovative then, like adding a song to make you better understand, like
Right.
let's try this way of teaching it. And Wuthering Heights, I'm an ELA teacher, but that was hard. It was hard. And Pat Benatar, I guess, sung a song about it. There's a movie. She did everything she could for our buy-in, and she always had a smile on her face. And really, I think that's what really I saw, that she tried different ways, and I have always enjoyed reading and I've always enjoyed writing, and so that's why I knew I wanted this subject. But her and just her presence was so great, and she would be my number one, except in case people outside of KDIC are watching, Miller Career has a really good program called Ready, Set, Teach. And
Yes.
I participated in that program. I've always wanted to be a teacher since I was 5 years old. So when Miller Career came and talked, I was like, yep, gonna do it. I have to do it. And I participated in that program. And there's a teacher that facilitates it, and her name was Miss Mitchell. and I still, me and her still talk now. She just, and again, teachers, it's a different setting, right? We all were there for a purpose. We wanted to be teachers, right? All of us that are participating, and it was newer, and it was a smaller setting. I think our class is 15, and she was there for us as people. We were seniors. She was there for me when I found out I was pregnant my senior year.
Oh, wow.
And I was not telling people, and she was someone I could tell, and she went to bat for me. And that summer I was working at Jason's Deli. She brought me clothes for the baby. She stayed in touch with me, and I mean, has continued to. She tried to keep that group together. We did some meetups later as we got older. I mean, and I'm an amazing person. I mean, I just, I mean, if people could say, like you, kind of like what you said earlier about maybe one day someone will talk about me in this way. If I had this kind of impact on any a kid that she did on me, I think that I did a good job.
Wow. That's, I, of all of the people that I have done this with, they have all talked about a teacher that has made them feel a certain way, that has been there for them. And I want to say you may be the first one that talked about being able to go to this teacher as a confidant, tell them something that nobody else has knows about, that you didn't want anybody else to know about, and that is, wow,
And
that's amazing.
Well, now knowing as an educator, she put her job on the line for me,
right?
Because people did find out she knew, and she stuck by me, and I mean, now at that time,
Right.
even I knew she was helping me, right? But like, you're kind of like, oh, well, that's her job as a teacher, as a kid.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 18,
Yeah.
17, but now as an educator, I'm like, man, like,
Wow.
she
Yes.
really put it all in for me, and she had a family, and but she was there for me, and yeah.
Well, I mean, that's like I say, that's one of the main reasons that I want to do this podcast, so that people hear what it is that we as educators put out there, what we do, what our favorite teachers did for us,
Yeah.
so that we can be here today. And I think that that's important, that people hear that story. Now we're going to go into the next portion, our last portion, a word or a phrase. I know we talked before this about the word or phrase, but as I listen to everything that you talked about today, I want to give you, uh, I want to give you a phrase that just popped up into my head when when I was in the military. I'm going to do a quick little story before I tell you this word or phrase. When I was in the military, um, I I remember still to this day, some almost 30 years later, when I was in basic training, we had a drill instructor that told us troop welfare and mission accomplishment. Mission accomplishment always comes first, troop welfare comes second. But you'll never get the mission accomplished if your troops are worried about their families back at home. If your troops are worried about uh, when are they going to get to eat. So the first thing that I learned about in leadership was you have to take care of your people. And you talked earlier about when you worked at this middle school, you had a camaraderie, a group of individuals that made your career good, made you happy. I would dare to say. So the phrase that I would like to give you or have you talk about is the importance of the team, your team. Tell the audience about the importance of having a good team as an educator?
It's everything. I mean, I think that you need people to rely on, right, in the instruction piece,
Right.
the planning piece. But you also need people on your good and bad days that are celebrating you on your good days, that are on your bad days, like, Kelly, you are not going to let this, hold you down. Like, because when you do have people that you are a team and y'all care about each other, they knew where my heart was. And so when I was down, they could build me up in seconds in a way that, like, your spouse can't if they're not in education. I mean, I would go home and talk to him and, oh, how dare they? Or, like, do they know how hard you work? And I'm like, well, like, meaning parents, admin, whatever.
Right.
I'm like, I don't know, but they do, because they're in the trenches with us and we are there for each other. And what's hard is when we're here for the kids. And
Right.
the only way that you can be here for the kids is if you are a team. It was just so great. I mean, honestly, I just don't even know. I mean, that was a family type. We didn't even do anything outside of school.
Right.
It felt like, because we were so close during the day, cutting up in the halls, like talking, cutting up with each other's students at that time, that it was just like, it fulfilled it's that book. It filled my bucket that day.
Right.
I didn't feel like I needed to go out and hang out on the weekends and do those things, because those were my people. And then in the elementary, because it is so much more tight knit, we were a team in a different way, like procedures. We are what is best for our kids based off of us all knowing we needed small groups. Like, how could we do this? Like, planning for each other. And I like how you say yin and yang. Like, we were all different, but we could, okay, you got this and I got this, and we brought so much to the table that it's just so amazing, right? And then, now being back in junior high, all of us have our own strengths,
Yes.
And we all look at things differently. And it is. I mean, I don't even know if I answered the question correctly.
No, you did.
But I just think the team makes a huge difference. Like, I couldn't imagine being on a campus or in a district where it was just me.
Right.
While you maybe can have value in, like, you get to pick, so you don't have to worry about what other people's opinions are or what other people are saying, but just having that bouncing off ideas and, learning from other people. I constantly want to keep learning. And so, like, being able to do that with people, I mean, it's just so important. It makes my day so much better too. Like, whether it be just in planning, just in the, like, halls, like, being able to look down the hall and be like, even if it's just a wave, just there's some adult, like, and then, that they're about to go in there and we're just all doing this together. I think teaching is one of those things you can't look out for just yourself.
No.
And you need to be there for yourself, yes, but for everybody that is looking out for the same students in your group.
Exactly. Yes, the team is extremely important. We cannot do this on our own. We as you stated before, we need that bucket to be filled by an adult.
Yeah.
Because spending all day with, and I've said this before, you work with middle schoolers, you are the strongest people on this planet, because you spend all day with them. You turn out different.
Yep.
So now we've come to the end of the podcast, and at the end of the podcast, I'd like to turn the mic over to the guests to, one, tell the audience where they can find you, and two, to give any words of wisdom, closing words, something that you'd like the audience to know about what it means to be an educator in today's society. So I'm going to turn the mic over to you, and I'll let you tell them where you can find them, and any last closing words.
So I'm on Twitter, X.
Okay.
I think Miss Martinez, ELA, is, and that's where I do most of my educational things. I will thank my principal at Jinx because he was very big about that platform and sharing, so that way we could allow the community to see like what was happening in the classroom. I think it's important. I find a lot of great ideas on there from people. I think it's very important. I'm always searching for new ideas. I on Facebook. We were joking before, but I did also try and start, and it's still on there.
It is
An ELA secondary teacher page, just because, and more so specific to us, only because I do follow every ELA page, probably on Facebook.
right.
Just because I like to get ideas. However, seeing that some of them have a lot more freedom than maybe we do in like what they choose with text or things like that, sometimes their stuff doesn't align, right? Or and so I did think it was important for us to have something that we could collaborate on as educators. Final words.
You want to talk about that choice? You can do it now.
I mean, really, my final words too, though, is just I want teachers that are listening to know that they're not alone. I mean, every day, whatever's happening to you, it's happened to another teacher, you know, or you can find another teacher that it's happened to talk to, because I do think it's important to talk to somebody. Having somebody, maybe not a whole team, but you have that one person that you can just go to. But also parents, I think it's important to know, they know that, getting emotional again, is that we do care about them and them and their kids. I have a hard time letting go of kids, right? They go on to bigger and better things, but just that their kid had that much of an impact on me. They're not just a kid on my roll, you know, for 9 months, that they make a difference in my life. Just as much as I want to make a difference for them, I want them to know that their kids make a difference for us too, and that, you know, we aren't against them and we want to be a team, and, you know, that we're trying our best. So like when we are passionate about certain things, maybe like I said earlier, I'm very passionate about choice. You know, that I'm not the bad guy in that. I want your kids to have choice, because I think that that's what gets them going. I mean, I will tell you, so many kids that have been told, I mean, they're 8th graders, and for years I've been told I can't read graphic novels. I'm currently reading the graphic novel of 451, Fahrenheit 451.
Yeah.
And they look at it on my desk and they're like, you can read a graphic novel? I was like, you can read one. I mean, I really just want them reading, because I think our culture is changing to where reading's not a priority anymore.
Right.
And as they get older, and as we lose class time, you know, going from the 90 to 45 minutes, at least for us, you do lose that time. And they're not reading it for leisure anymore. And so I think that giving them a choice, finding somebody that, and I've prided myself of finding books that have all different kinds of people in it, different cultures, different main characters, different problems. You know, just because there were some books when I was growing up that, you know, really just, I was like, man, I'm not the only one. And I think that kids need that. And I just want us all as a community to come together, and as teams and parents and students, that we just really want to be there for your kids and you and their education. And, you know, maybe one day they do mention Miss Martinez made an impact, and like I want them to know that that would be enough for me. Awesome. You know, and I just hope that somebody learned something, or reflect that, you know, maybe you go to work on Monday and you may check on your teammates, or I don't know, something that you just see that maybe you didn't know you were making an impact, and you are, and making more of steps to do that. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. And that brings us to the end of the podcast. I'd like to take this time to thank you, Miss Martinez, for doing this. This has been awesome. I loved all of these beautiful nuggets that you left us today. So that's the end. Thank you, and peace.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode of Your Favorite Teacher's Favorite Teacher podcast. If you have a story you'd like to share, please contact me at wdstubblefield@wdsi.us. Again, that is wdstubblefield@wdsi.us. US. And you could be our next inspirational story of how educators impact our lives. I'm your host, Mr. Stubblefield, and I want you to remember, no profession is possible without your favorite teacher.